Everyone. For today's presentation, I have a verse from the 15th chapter. The 15th chapter in the Gita is another small chapter, but very powerful chapter. It's a very enigmatic chapter with deep meaning, and it's considered very, very sacred, and usually it is chanted before eating. Just like in the 10th chapter where Krishna talks about his divine glories and gives a grand description of his divine glories, he revisits about his divine manifestations in this chapter. And he says, I am the sun that illuminates the whole world. I am the brilliance in the fire. I am the moon that nourishes all the plants on the earth to form food. I am the fire in your belly that digests your food. So he gives another extensive description and then says, where am I? I am right in your hearts, right within you. For that, we go to verse 15 in this 15th chapter. Interestingly, this verse 15:15 is the last of the Trishtubs, meaning there are two types of verses in the Gita, the short ones and the long ones. The long ones are called Trishtubs. Each line has 11 syllables. And this happens to be the last of those long verses. And Krishna says, Sarvasya chaham hudisannivishto mattah smrutir gnanam apohanam cha Vedaischa sarvairahameva vedyo vedanta krut veda videva chaham. Krishna says, I dwell in the hearts of all beings, and from me come memory, forgetfulness, and knowledge, wisdom. I am the one, Krishna says, to be known through the Vedas. And it so happens, I am the author of all the Vedas, and hence I am the knower of all the Vedas. So when he's talking about he being in the heart of all beings, he's not talking about the anatomical heart, but the spiritual heart that we have. And this he states several times throughout the Gita. He repeats it several times. Like I was saying, he talks about his divine glories in the 10th chapter. There also, 10:20, he says, Ahamatma Gudakesha Sarva Bhutashaya Stitaha. He's calling Arjuna Gudakesha. Apparently, Arjuna had very thick hair. So he says, oh Arjuna, I am the self residing in all the hearts of all beings. And even in this 15th chapter, which happens to be a small one, but he repeats this fact earlier also, 15:7, Mamaivamsho jiva loke jiva bhutaha sanatanaha. A fragment, a portion, an amsha of mine, myself, which is immortal in nature, is the embodied spirit in all the beings, he says. And he finally says it one more time in the 18th chapter. Ishvaraha sarva bhutanam hruddeshejuna tishtati. The divine dwells in the heart of all beings, O Arjuna, he says. So he's reminding us that we are spiritual beings, and this factor is also mentioned by Vedavyasa in the Vishnu Nama Sahasrakam, Sahasra Vishnu Nama, he mentions that Vishnu is Sarva Bhuta Nivasosi. He lives in the hearts of all beings. So this knowledge that he is in our hearts is important. What would be the practical implications about the importance of this knowledge? When we are aware that we are spiritual beings having human experiences, not the other way around, we can make conscious decisions, conscious choices, conscious efforts to experience this divinity within us. And Krishna assures us in this chapter 15:11, Yatanto yoginas chainam pasyantyatmanyavasthitam. He says, the striving, the seekers, yogis, perceive this divinity, this Atman within themselves when they make an effort. He also reminds us he is not only in the heart, but he is the force, the energy that holds us together, that holds this universe together. In the 7th chapter, 7, he says, Mai sarvam idam protam sutre mani gana iva. Means like when we look at a string of pearls or a garland where all the flowers or all the pearls in the necklace, they are held together with a thread going through them. Similarly, he says, the universe, the whole universe is strung on me. I transcend everything, including you, your hearts. And so everything comes out of me, he says. And he reminds us in this verse about 3 things that come out of him. He says, he enumerates memory, forgetfulness, and knowledge, wisdom. So let us look at them. When we look at memory, it's very important for us to function and function well in the world, to have good memory. Starting from our childhood, we learned so many things about ourselves, our family, our surroundings, our language, our education, culture, job, the roles we play in life, the scriptures, you name it, all aspects of life. We learn a lot, and we are able to remember and retain this information because we have this capacity to remember, this memory. And also throughout our lives, we are learning. It's a continuous process, only possible because of this memory. It's a wonderful gift. And it is said life is nothing but a string of gathering many wonderful memories and cherishing them. Okay? And memory comes from what? From past experience, guiding us at present and hopefully in the future. So it's a wonderful gift, but problem comes when we start remembering what is not helpful. I'll give you some examples. One could be making inventory of all the injustices we have incurred in our lives. It is not fair. I was victim. It was not fair that I didn't get such and such, or I got such and such. We remember all the things that were not helpful or that happened to us, and we suffer again and again. Or we feel sorry for the lost glory, especially as we get older and we lose the past glory, youth, looks, capacity. Some may be losing money. So we think about all those things and feel sorry for ourselves rather than enjoying what we have right now. or maybe feeling guilty or sad about some past experiences, feeling mad, vengeful about some hurt we had, and feeling revengeful, and can't seem to change, can't seem to get ourselves out of that memory. All these type of habits would be nothing but waste of time and not enjoying the life we have right now. It would be like abusing the gift. When we look at a knife, it is so useful to have a knife. We cut our fruits, vegetables. The surgeon uses it to save lives, but it can also be abused to harm people, to kill people. Similarly, this memory, which is such a wonderful gift, can also be abused. To avoid that, Krishna says, I gave you the next wonderful gift, which is forgetfulness. When we first hear about forgetfulness, it doesn't sound like it would be a gift, but when we look deep into it, this is what we use when people say time heals. We forget that present hurt to get better, to overcome things that happen in our lives. Forgetfulness helps. In the scriptures, when we read the story of Hiranyakashipu, which means clad, he clothed in gold, he was after him wealth. And when Hiranyakashipu's brother Hiranyaksha was killed by Vishnu because of the things that he did, Hiranyaksha's wife was very, very mad, very vengeful. And in Hiranyakashipu advises her. He says, it's not worth it. Forget about being vengeful. Forget about revenge. However, he fails to follow his own advice. And he himself couldn't overcome that feeling, which led to his demise eventually. Which means he traveled very, very heavy with that emotional baggage. So when we have emotional baggage, life becomes very burdensome. It's very difficult to travel in this life. So we need to get rid of this emotional baggage, for which forgetfulness helps, which means to learn to let go. When we look at children, they seem to have tremendous capacity to let go, to let the past go and not hang on to the past. They seem to be able to make up in no time and play again. They seem to be enjoying the present time rather than worrying about what happened in the past. So that means they are using this apohana, the forgetfulness. Even if we cannot do that, we may not be able to forget, but we have capacity to develop new habits, to manage these memories that are not helpful. For example, we can learn to put it on the back burner, looking at this character, Scarlett O'Hara, in Gone with the Wind. She always uses this. She says, I'll think about it tomorrow. We can say, I don't want to think about it now, maybe later. The psychologists also use this. They say that you can, when those memories are bothering you, you can write them down, put them in a box and say, I'm going to look at them later. Like intentionally trying to put them on the back burner. Or use distractions. We used to use these with chronic pain patients. Even though we couldn't take away their pain, we could teach them how to take their mind off of their pain and, enjoy life, be distracted from it. And we use this in real life too, like listening to music, having hobbies like tending a garden, talking to friends, watching a movie, doing things like that, or even higher things like prayer, meditation. So we can use methods by which we can change the dial in our head, or even develop coping skills using humor. And humor is a good way to change the dial, thinking about pleasant and funny things, and also reminding us about all the good things we have in life. So in other words, we can develop new habits so the old habits do not keep on pestering us about remembering things we don't need to. Which could be also mental purging, which means like if the memories come back, we can use the tool saying, is this the best way to spend my time? The time which I have is very limited on this earth. Is this the best way to spend it? And the answer is almost always no. There are better things to do, better things to think about. You can spend your limited time in a better way, is what our wisdom tells us. So we need to know one way or the other to forget about things that are not helpful and learn new things. And to learn new things is also, it's important to forget about old things that are not helpful so we can replace them with new things. So use your wisdom, Krishna says, which I have given you, which helps you to think when to do what, to know when to remember, to know when to forget. Use your jnana I gave you, Krishna says. Like the pledge of serenity. God, grant me serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, and the courage to change things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Jnana also helps us to realize life is a series of roles we play. We are born like a small baby, somebody's grandchild, somebody's child, to then we change so many roles in between, and finally, hopefully, end up as a grandparent or even great-grandparent if we are lucky. But no matter what, it's a limited time. It's a limited, time during which we play all these roles. And the only thing constant is the self, that I am a spiritual being. A spiritual being who's here to have these human experiences. So jnana also helps us to realize who we are and helps us to have an attitude of gratitude to face all these experiences in life. Jnana hence helps us to develop a habit of remembering what is important and forgetting, letting go of what is not important, thus avoiding a lot of man-made misery that we experience through our thinking. So life becomes a constant effort of learning and unlearning, learning and enhancing life and unlearning what is not helpful. Research shows that when we change our thinking, our anatomy, our pathways, our connections in our brain also change. When the connections change, our thinking changes. So one is dependent on the other, meaning as we think better, our connections change, our connections change, our thinking becomes better too. So it's like the software and the hardware are interdependent. One is changing the other. So how do we realize this jnana? How do we use this wisdom? Krishna directs us to the scriptures. He says, 16:24, Tasmat Shastram Pramanam Te. Let the scriptures be thy guide. Specifically, the Vedas, even more specifically, the Upanishads. Okay, use them because they are the root of all wisdom, all jnana. Veda means to know. Okay, and who has written them? Krishna says, I did. Okay, he is the author of all the Vedas. Vedanta Krit. He is the Vedanta Krit. They are his creation. And they are revealed to the great sages during their deep meditation. Through intuition, they heard this. So that's why they're called Shrutis. Since they were authored by Krishna, he is the knower. Naturally, he is the knower of all Vedas. Vedavid, he is Vedavid also. And happens to be the root of all jnana. And he encourages us again and again. In the 17th chapter, he says, Swadhyaya Abhyasanam. Learning the scriptures is the way. The Vedas is the way to get this knowledge. And when you read the Vedas, I am the one who is the seat of all knowledge, wisdom, is the one you would be knowing. Vedyaiha, aham vedyaiha, I am the one to be known by sarvaihi vedaihi, by all the Vedas. Getting through all the Vedas, what is it? Ultimately, you would get to know me, Krishna says. So that's very nice. However, the Vedas are written in, of course, Sanskrit, and at a very high level of literature. You know, very difficult for ordinary people like you and I to be able to read them, assimilate them, understand them, practice them. Hence, Krishna says, I made it easier for you. What did I do? I gave you Bhagavad Gita. In the Dhyana part, Bhagavad Gita says, Sarvopanishado Gavo Dogdha Gopala Nandanaha Partho Vatsaha Sudhir Bhokta Dugdham Gitamrutam Mahat. When you look at all the Upanishads, they are like the cows which are full of milk, they are full of jnana. And Krishna is like the son of a cowherd who is the milker, who gets that milk out. And Arjuna happens to be the calf. You know, when the cow is really giving milk to the calf. And of course, in addition to the calf, we are also enjoying cow's milk. Similarly, this milk, it is said, is like Gita is this milk. This is this nectar of, knowledge. And we are all the ones who are benefiting from this whole process. And so Krishna says Gita is nothing but the synopsis of all the Upanishads, and I gave that all essence of all the Upanishads to you through the Gita. So get to read Gita and use it as a GPS. GPS to know me, Krishna says, who is the knower of all, who is the basis of all knowledge, all wisdom. And then Krishna says, where am I? Right in your heart. All beings, which is the seat of all bliss. So the question we can ask ourselves is, so who am I? The question that Ramana Maharshi always encouraged us to ask ourselves, who am I? And the scripture says, tell us, aham brahmasmi. I am Brahman. So it comes full circle. So what comes out of this divinity, this aham brahmasmi, I have this divinity within me. I am that. So what comes out of it? Krishna says, these two main things come with jnana, memory and forgetfulness, and jnana, so that I can remember, so that we can remember who we really are, so that we can remember what is important, what is helpful, and forget who we are not. Forget what is not important. Forget what is not helpful. And that's what jnana is all about. I would like to close with a quotation from Saint Francis of Assisi. He said, the one you are looking for is the one who is doing the looking. Okay? That means You're looking for your own self, the self within you, which is the seat of the bliss, seat of the joy. So you're already given everything. Krishna says, just learn to enjoy what you are already endowed with. And that's my presentation. Thank you all.